Okay, so we're going to begin the Sri Ishopanishad by looking at the preface, which is in the very beginning. The Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas and Bengali Vaishnavas are mostly followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of whom the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan are direct disciples. Therefore, Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung, Rupa Raghunatha Pade Ha Ibe Akuti Kaba Hama Bujhabase Jugala Pariti. When I am eager to understand the literature given by the Goswamis, then I shall be able to understand the transcendental loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. Okay, so this book is written by Srila Rupa Goswami, and literally it's the Upadeshamrita, right, as the actual Sanskrit name. It's the nectar, Amrita, of Upadesh. Yeah, it's the nectar of instruction. And so, who's the instruction from? Well, it's from Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami is one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. So we are in the line of the 6 Goswamis, right? They're our gurus, and they are disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directly. They're Shiksha disciples, right? They were directly associated with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They knew him, with, I think, the exception of Jiva Goswami, who was a little bit younger, but they all personally interacted with him and interacted with his most intimate devotees, such as Sri Damodar Goswami, Ramananda Roy, etc. They all knew them, right? And also there's the next generation, also like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. They all lived there within Vrindavan, and they were established. Basically, Lord Chaitanya sent them there to discover the holy places. Like, they kind of had 2 different jobs, really. They all lived in Vrindavan, and they were meant to discover all the holy places like Radhakund and Shamakund and kind of bring them out and build them up and make them into publicly attended holy places. And then also to sort of canonize the Shastra, right? To actually take the Shastra and to take the principles of devotional service as taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and present it clearly in a scholarly way. Okay? And so they wrote these really big books like Lagu Bhagavatamrita and, all these big presentations of devotional service, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which we'll study next. But then this one right here is just kind of like a little taste, like I said, like a glubjaman. It's like a little ladu of teachings, you just put it right in your mouth. And it's easy to remember, right? Like you can memorize all these verses. Some of the later verses are a little bit more complex. But at least, the first 8 verses or so, because there's only, 11? I think it's 11. Yeah, so there's 11 verses, and each of these verses, they're so powerful that they're kind of like, almost like steps in devotional service, and it begins with the very basic stuff, and really getting down mantra 1 and accomplishing that, and like taking that very seriously, and somehow it takes a long time. That's a very difficult thing, right? Controlling the senses, basically, gaining control of the body, becoming a Goswami. And then it talks about basically proper and improper action, talks about how to associate with devotees. That's a major topic, right? How to interact with the society, and then also how to chant the holy name. And then it talks about, in the final verses, it talks about the importance of Radhakund and the holy places of Vrindavan, and sort of like the spiritual hierarchy of the spiritual world, and how worship of the worship of the gopis towards Krishna is the highest manifestation of spiritual reality, and especially the worship of Radharani. Like she's the highest spiritual being within existence. So it takes you kind of from the bottom of the basic principles of how to qualify yourself to perform devotional service, all the way to like the highest philosophical truths in 11 verses. So very powerful and beautiful. And in this preface, Prabhupada's main emphasis is that to approach the loving affairs of Srimati Radharani and Krishna, which is the highest truth, then you have to approach through the 6 Goswamis. Okay? So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in order to bestow upon human society the benediction of the science of Krishna. The most exalted of all the activities of Lord Krishna are his pastimes of conjugal love with the gopis. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the mood of Srimati Radharani, the best of the gopis. Therefore, to understand the mission of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and follow in his footsteps, one must very seriously follow in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis, Sri Rupa, Sanatana, Bhatta Raghunatha, Sri Jiva Gopal Bhatta, and Dasa Raghunatha. Sri Rupa Goswami was the leader of all the Goswamis, and to guide our activities he gave us this Upadeshamrita, the nectar of instruction, to follow. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left behind him the 8 verses known as the Shikshashtaka, Rupa Goswami gave us the Upadeshamrita so that we may become pure Vaishnavas. Now, it's interesting because there are a lot of similarities between the Shikshashtaka and the Upadeshamrita. Shikshashtaka is only 8 verses, and it's the only thing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wrote down. It's actually the Chaitanya Charitamrita ends with the Shikshashtaka and with a whole description of what it means and stuff, right? And so it also starts kind of at the beginning of devotional service, developing an appreciation for the holy name. It's like the first verse. Second verse deals with like recognizing how powerful the name is and how unfortunate because you're not attracted. It's kind of like where we're at least I'm speaking of myself. It's like we're inattentive, because we basically haven't recognized the glories of the holy name. We don't recognize the importance of it. We don't see the urgency of it because we don't have enough faith and we don't understand how glorious the holy name is. Like if we truly understood the holy name, what it is or who it is, then we would be just like, okay, stop everything. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Like I don't want to, that's the only thing I want to do is just, my God, I can't believe this. God is in my mouth. It's like if we really understood it, then we would devote ourselves fully to it. But we don't. Because there's no attraction, there's no desire. Therefore, dordaivam, we're very, very unfortunate. We're like a homeless person, like a drug addict dragging themselves through the streets of Los Angeles with $1 million in their backpack, something like that, right? And they're begging for something to eat out of the garbage or something. So that's like our condition. And then, of course, Lord Chaitanya talks about the qualities required to chant properly, and then he gets into like what happens when you do chant properly, and the consciousness that develops, how you become purified, and ultimately what is the highest level, just like this book, is the love affairs of Krishna and the gopis, and yourselves developing that particular consciousness. You see? So it's almost like the Shikshashtaka is like a chanting version of Upadeshamrita, focused on the chanting. Okay? So in all spiritual affairs, one's first duty is to control his mind and senses. Unless one controls his mind and senses, one cannot make any advancement in spiritual life. So this is the first verse. Everyone within the material world is engrossed in the modes of passion and ignorance. One must promote himself to the platform of goodness, sattva gun, by following the instructions of Rupa Goswami. Then everything concerning how to make further progress will be revealed. So once you're in sattva gun, then devotional service becomes easy. Practically the only problem we have is that we're not in sattva gun, Like all the problems that we experience in life and, all that turmoil we have in our mind and everything, that's all just rajas and tamas beating us down. But once you become situated in sattva gun, then not only does it become easier, but the whole path becomes clear to you. Like I know what I have to do. I know what the next step is. I know what I'm supposed to do. Right? Like we're all confused and muddled, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, What should I do? Where am I? What am I going to do? Oh my God. Help, Krishna, it's so hopeless. So that's all tamas and rajas. Once we're in sattva gun, then it's like a clear, like a road, like when you drive out into the desert or something, like say you leave Los Angeles, thank God, and you drive out, over the mountains and everything, and all the scummy ghetto and everything like that, you finally pick your way through it, and you make your way out into the Mojave Desert or whatever, and it's just an empty road for, as far as you can see. Yeah, and it's all just clean and clear, and the morning sun is rising, and it's warm, and it's beautiful, and there's nothing but birds, right? That's like sattva gun. And so you can see the road as far as it goes, okay? So the same thing with your devotional service. So advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. A follower of the Krishna consciousness movement should be a perfect Goswami. So this is the topic Prabhupada emphasizes in the first verse or so. Vaishnavas are generally known as Goswamis. In Vrindavan, this is the title by which the director of each temple is known. So temple president in Vrindavan, they call them Goswamis, right? One who wants to become a perfect devotee of Krishna must become a Goswami. So Prabhupada's not referring to that. He means the traditional meaning of Goswami. Go means the senses, and Swami means the master. Unless one controls his senses and mind, one cannot become a Goswami. To achieve the highest success in life by becoming a Goswami and then a pure devotee to the Lord, one must follow the instructions known as Upadeshamrita, which have been given by Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami has given many other books such as the Bhaktivedanta Sindhu, Vidagdha Madhava, Lalita Madhava, but the Upadeshamrita constitutes the first instructions for neophyte devotees. One should follow these instructions very strictly and then it will be easier to make one's life successful. Hare Krishna. All right? So a Goswami means a controller of the senses, and that's really what the first verse is talking about. So Prabhupada finished the book on September 20th, 1975, Vishwarup Mahotsava, Krishna Balaram Mandir, Raman Reti, Vrindavan, India. Okay, should we begin? Let's go ahead and begin. Well, me. No, let's go ahead. Yeah, no. What do you think? Yes, we've only got like 10 minutes, so. Okay. So let's go ahead and begin the first text. Vacho vegam manasakroda vegam jiva vegam mudadapasta vegam etan vegan yo vishaheta gita sarvam apimam prativam sashashat. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals is qualified to make disciples all over the world. All right, so there's quite a few things being said just in this first verse. First of all, this is the one that we really have to focus on. We have to focus on 2 and 3 also, kind of the do's and don'ts. But this one is where where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, where we really have to apply our work. This is where our work is being done. Yeah, like you can't really advance much if you don't get this verse down. Like you don't accomplish what this verse is telling you to do. It's like a doorway. It's a gateway verse to the higher levels of devotional service. Basically, until you get this verse done, you're just kind of like building yourself up to get the verse done. You know what I mean? Like all your devotional activities, all your chanting, everything is kind of building up to allow you to control the senses until you control the senses. And once you control the senses, then you go into the higher levels of devotional service as an art and a vritti, right? So we can't look past this verse. Practically speaking, you should tattoo this, on top of your head, even the Matajis. Right, and then, and every day you look at it in the mirror. And this is one of the Bhakti Shastri verses, probably for that reason, because it's so important. And we like, why am I saying this again and again and again? Is it just my usual blathering, repetitive, nonsensical blathering? Yes, but in addition to that, there's the element of that we like to look past this verse. Let's hurry up and read this dumb stuff about sense gratification and controlling. I've heard it all before. Control the senses, blah, blah, blah. Let's get to the juice, right? Let's talk about the good stuff. Radha and Krishna, and, But that's not really what we're supposed to do, And that's also, you notice Prabhupada, he didn't really talk about Radha and Krishna very much, right? Because he would focus on the things that devotees need to do. When his classes are much more apt to be talking about this than Radha and Krishna and the gopis and stuff like that. Okay, so let's look at this verse in that particular spirit. So it's really for us. Also notice it says sarvam apimam pritavam sashishat. So the way Rupa Goswami says that, that individual is a qualified devotee is by saying he's qualified to become a guru, right? So this is also an important verse for choosing a guru. Like when you're looking at what are the qualities of a bona fide spiritual master, which is part of initiation, you have to, the GBC invests you with the responsibility to know yourself what a bona fide spiritual master is, and then to find one yourself, right? So you have to know, basically all the qualities of what a bona fide guru is, and so this is one of them. This is like one of the most important verses for that. Okay, let's look here at the purport in Srimad Bhagavatam 6:1-9-10. Parikshit Maharaj placed a number of intelligent questions before Shukadev Goswami. One of these questions was, why do people undergo atonement if they cannot control their senses? For instance, a thief may know perfectly well that he may be arrested for his stealing, and he may actually even see another thief arrested by the police, yet he continues to steal. Experience is gathered by hearing and seeing. One who's less intelligent gathers experience by seeing, and one who's more intelligent gathers experience by hearing. When an intelligent person hears about the law books and shastras or scriptures that stealing is not good, and hears that a thief is punished when arrested, he refrains from theft. A less intelligent person may first have to be arrested and punished for stealing to learn to stop stealing. However, a rascal, a foolish man, may have the experience of both hearing and seeing and even being punished, but still he continues to steal. Even if such a person atones and is punished by the government, he will again commit theft as soon as he comes out of jail. If punishment in jail is considered atonement, what is the benefit of such atonement? Thus Parikshit Maharaj inquired. So this is the verse that Prabhupada referred to. Drishta shrutabhyam yat papam janan apyatmano hitam kadoti bhuyo vivashaha prayashchittam ato katam kvachin nivartate bhadrat kvachich chariti tat punaha prayashchittam ato partam manye kunjadashau chavat. Parikshit Maharaj compared atonement to an elephant's bathing. The elephant may take a very nice bath in the river, but as soon as it comes onto the bank, it throws dirt all over its body. What then is the value of its bathing? So Prabhupada mentions here there's 3 types of intelligence, right? There's first class, second class, third class. Third class intelligence, first class intelligence is just hear about something by hearing about it, and then you are able to understand it. You grasp the full import and purport, and therefore you regulate your activities. Like you're somebody who's intelligent, they hear doing drugs is bad, right? Doing heroin is bad. So now our Prabhu, Devin just laughed because he knows that it's bad, right? He's heard that. Have you ever done heroin, Devin? No. Because you've heard it's bad, right? That's first class intelligence, right? You hear it and you're like, oh my God, you do heroin, you probably get addicted the first time you do it, right? And it's a very destructive, disturbing thing. So you hear about it and immediately you understand enough so that you're not going to do it. That's intelligent. Then second class intelligence is that, it's not enough to just hear it, but I've seen people on heroin. And not just seen him on TV and stuff, that's there too, but I've seen, like my friend became a heroin addict and it was like really horrible, right? And that's enough for me. I don't need to try it. Like it has to be closer, and it has to be a more intense experience for you to understand it. And then the third class intelligence is even after doing it, and even after being a heroin addict and struggling and suffering, you still aren't willing to give it up, right? Like there may be a person that experiences it and they learn from that, but then fourth class intelligence is like you don't even learn from that, So that's and for most of us, for when it comes to heroin, obviously we understand, but when it comes to something like sense gratification, whatever, then we don't understand. Overeating or whatever it may be, that we can't control ourselves, Basically, the whole process of Krishna consciousness when it comes to sense gratification, it's like we're hearing again and again, don't do it, and we're trying to learn, We're trying to learn the importance of sense control. The Shastra's telling us, don't do it. And generally speaking, we're not intelligent enough to just say, okay, I give up the material world, right? You'd have to be pretty darn intelligent to just hear, material world is illusion, and you're like, oh, okay, that's enough for me. Right? It takes some time, It takes decades of struggling through and hearing it again and again and again, and going through it and suffering and all that, and then gradually we start to understand. Okay, and then this verse about Kunjada Shauchavat. So you see that elephants, they like to, because it's almost like the third class intelligence. Because elephants, once they bathe, they immediately come out of the river and they just start throwing dirt on themselves again. Right? That's what they do. So, therefore, that's what most people are like. Well, you perform a sinful activity, and then there's a prayashchitta, or a ritual given to purify you. Chant so many Hail Marys or whatever. And then immediately after finishing those rituals, you go out and do it again. Right? So it's like you just cleaned yourself, and now you're throwing dirt all over yourself again. And so Maharaj Parikshit's asking, why do people do this? He's asking Shukadeva Goswami. A very good question. And the answer is basically because you're not purifying the heart. Now, you can purify the sin. You can do some ritual to wash away the sin that you just committed. But if it doesn't get down to the heart and purify the heart, you're going to do the sin again because you're attracted to it. And you can't. So the real atonement is not just to do these rituals, but to actually engage yourself in devotional service and purify your heart that way. Okay? Let's finish this paragraph. And then I'm going to ask for some shlokas. Dun, dun, dun. That was an uncomfortable moment. So similarly, many spiritual practitioners chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and at the same time commit many forbidden things, thinking that their chanting will counteract their offenses. Of the 10 types of offenses one can commit while chanting the holy name of the Lord, this offense is called Namno Balad Yasya Hi Papa Buddhi. That's what I mistakenly quoted before. So committing sinful activities on the strength of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So that's considered the most offensive of the 10 offenses. So, like you think I'm just going to commit some sinful activity. I'm going to go do drugs and have illicit sex. Go out tonight, Saturday night, hard bowl, right? Take off that dhoti, wipe that T-lock off your head, and get out there, right? And then, don't worry about it, because when I get back, I'll chant some Hare Krishna, and it's totally clean. So Krishna doesn't appreciate that very much. So similarly, certain Christians go to church to confess their sins, thinking that confessing their sins before a priest and performing some penance will relieve them from the results of their weekly sins. As soon as Saturday is over and Sunday comes, they again begin their sinful activities, expecting to be forgiven the next Saturday. This kind of parishchitta, or atonement, is condemned by Parikshit Maharaj, the most intelligent king of his time. So obviously serious Christians aren't going to do that, but there's that tendency to think, yeah, it's okay, I'll just Hail Mary and it'll be fine, right? Even just Hail Mary before and after you do the sin, right? So Shukadeva Goswami, equally intelligent as befitting the spiritual master of Maharaj Parikshit, answered the king and confirmed that his statement concerning atonement was correct. A sinful activity cannot be counteracted by a pious activity. Thus, real prayashchitta atonement is the awakening of our dormant Krishna consciousness. Do you mind if I read one more paragraph? Because I want to finish what Prabhupada's here. He's going to finish talking about this atonement in the next paragraph. So real atonement involves coming to real knowledge. For this there's a standard process. When one is following a regulated hygienic process, he does not fall sick. A human being is meant to be trained according to certain principles to revive his original knowledge. Such a methodical life is described as tapasya. One can gradually be gradually elevated to the standard of real knowledge or Krishna consciousness by practicing austerity and celibacy, brahmacharya, by controlling the mind, by controlling the senses, by giving up one's possessions and charity, by being avowedly truthful, right? Being truthful even though it may not be comfortable, by keeping clean, and by practicing yoga asanas. So this is the indirect path. It's kind of like talking about the path of yoga in general, right? However, if one is fortunate enough to get the association of a pure devotee, he can easily surpass all the practices for controlling the mind by the mystic yoga process simply by following the regular principles of Krishna consciousness, refraining from illicit sex, meat-eating, intoxication, and gambling, and by engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master. This easy process being recommended by Srila Prabhupada Goswami. So you have in the Raj Yoga system, or Ashtanga Yoga system, you have Yama Niyama Asana, right? You have the first two levels are the do's and don'ts. So that's kind of what it's being referring to here. And so that's kind of an indirect path, but you can go past that by just following Krishna consciousness under a guru. It's kind of like the same thing, It's included within that, okay? And then the point here Prabhupada's making also is that real atonement is, we said purification of the heart, but it's also development of knowledge, right? Like the reason you sin is because of ignorance. In fact, we'll hear in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar Devotion, that the cycle of sin is based upon avidya, it's based upon ignorance. The only reason people sin is because they're ignorant, right? Somebody murders somebody, the reason they did that is because they don't know what the hell's going on. They're doing it out of ignorance. If they knew what they were doing, they would never do it. Even if their concern is only selfish, like they're afraid, if they understood the result of that karma. It's like you don't stick your hand into an industrial blender, right? Like if the only reason someone would jam their hand into a machine that will mangle it to look like roast beef is because you're stupid. You don't understand what the machine is, and you're intoxicated, right? So it's that illusioned, intoxicated, kind of ignorant condition, which is what causes people to sin. Like if you see someone running out into the middle of Highway 10, right, and there's cars flying by at 70 miles an hour. So why are they doing that? Do you think this is a responsible individual who's fully in charge of their mind and senses? You think this person's crazy. Even if you call the police to report it, you'll say there's a crazy man running out on the street, right? So it's the same thing, that we're crazy, that's why we sin. And so you have to come to correct consciousness that insanity has to be healed, and you have to basically come to a level of knowledge, and then you won't sin. If you're full of knowledge, you're not going to be attracted to sinful activities. All right? So it's again, if you look at the Bhagavad Gita, it's that struggle between knowledge and lust. Remember from the 3rd chapter, it's that tension, Okay, so now it's time for shlokas. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.